Hello everyone and welcome to another Growing with God video. Today we're going to be talking about the problem with ambition because it can be a problem. And if we look around, there may be many things that we may want, money, possessions, cars, a big house, a well-paying job, other things that people commonly desire. But what we as Christians should learn is when to go out of our way to get something and when to retreat, because Satan can use our ambition to make us do things that are improper. And there are many examples in the Bible of when this actually happened to people, like Abiram, Dathan, and Korah in Numbers chapter 16, where Satan was able to use their desire for more power to make them attempt to overthrow Moses and Aaron, which, God later punished them, and he did this by opening the earth to swallow them. And Absalom was also another very ambitious person, as we see from 2 Samuel chapter 15 verses 1 to 6, where we see him, trying to take advantage of David's political weakness after, David was punished by God. And he used that opportunity to try to kill David and become king. Now, David was supposed to become king. Absalom becoming king was obviously not God's will, so God had put a stop to it and killed Absalom. If we know the story, his hair got stuck in a tree, and then David's men used that as an opportunity to kill him in 2 Samuel chapter 18 verse 18. And then there's also King Sennacherib in Isaiah chapter 36 to 37, where we see that he was very ambitious. He wanted to take over all of Israel, and because of King Hezekiah's prayer for protection, God had killed 186,000 of King Sennacherib's soldiers, and then King Sennacherib himself was even killed. So, what is the lesson we should draw from this? Well, one thing is that the spirit of this kind of ambition largely comes from Satan. He was ambitious himself, if you read Isaiah chapter 14 verses 12 to 15, where we see the narrative painted of Satan trying to sort of overthrow God. Now, in order to not replicate Satan, if something is against God's will, we should not be overly ambitious in trying to achieve it, because God will always win. His will always prevail. And this is why King David usually made an effort to control his ambition. If you read his words in Psalms chapter 131 verses 1 and 2, and these verses read, "Lord, my heart is not haughty, nor mine eyes lofty. Neither do I exercise myself in great matters, or things too high for me. Surely I have behaved and quieted myself, as a child that is weaned of his mother. My soul is even as a weaned child." Plus, this kind of ambition also comes from a lack of contentment with your own current situation, causing you to constantly be wanting more and more. And this desire will harm your faith in God because, as we see in Mark chapter 4 verses 18 and 19, the constant desire to want more can choke our faith, and it may even spur some people to kill others. Not all, obviously, but some with very extreme ambition, as you see in James chapter 4 verses 1 and 2. And it was for this reason that inordinate ambition was cursed in the Bible, in places like Habakkuk chapter 2 verses 4 and 5 and Isaiah chapter 5 verse 8. So I say this to encourage us to learn contentment. Take inspiration from St. Paul, who himself was okay in any situation he was in, as he wrote in Philippians chapter 4 verses 11 to 12 in that letter. He told us here, "Not that I speak in respect of want, for I have learned in whatsoever state I am therewith to be content. I know both how to be abased, and I know how to abound. Everywhere in all things I am instructed both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and to suffer need." Contentment is important because abandoning God just to pursue this world is completely profitless, as we are told by Jesus Christ in Mark chapter 8 verse 36, that what profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul? So we should recognize that if we see ourselves unable to achieve something, it may be because God has placed us in a lower position for our own benefit, and we should be okay with that and not abandon God to pursue that. If there is one thing we should be overly ambitious for, it's getting closer to God, as we can never go wrong here. We see this from Jeremiah's words in Jeremiah chapter 9 verses 23 to 24. Let's take a look at what that verse says. It tells us, "Let not the wise man glory in his wisdom, neither let the mighty man glory in his might. Let not the rich man glory in his riches, but let him that glorieth glory in this, that he understandeth and knoweth me, that I am the Lord which exercise loving kindness, judgment, and righteousness in the earth. For in these things I delight, saith the Lord." We see a great example of this with St. Paul, who was ambitious to spread the gospel, if you read Acts chapter 20, verse 24, and Romans chapter 15, verse 20. So this is why Christ had advised us not to let our hearts be overtaken with worldly ambition and worldly standards, so that we don't lose track of what God is doing in our time. If you read Luke chapter 21, verse 34, where he told us, "And take heed to yourselves, lest at any time your hearts be overcharged with surfeiting and drunkenness and cares of this life, and so that day come upon you unawares." But anyway, I think I can stop there on this video about the problems with worldly ambition. If you have enjoyed this video, I would appreciate it if you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and also to hit the bell icon down below so you know when new Growing with God videos come out. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next video.